Check your pocket change. These 1969, 1977, and 1987 Jefferson nickels could be worth way more than 5 cents. Some rare mint errors from these years have sold for hundreds of dollars. Don't skip this video if you love finding hidden coin treasures. 1969 was a time of change, innovation, and deep reflection in the United States. The country was reaching for the moon, the Vietnam War was ongoing, and America was evolving socially and technologically. Amid all of that, the U.S. Mint was quietly continuing one of its most routine yet essential jobs, producing the nation's coins. Millions of nickels were struck that year, each bearing the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his elegant Monticello home on the reverse. To most people, these coins were just everyday money, something to use for a cup of coffee or a bus ride. But within that massive production run of 1969 5-cent coins, a few slipped through the presses with something unusual, something unintentional, and something that would, decades later, make collectors' hearts race. These were the 1969 era nickels, coins so fascinating and so rare that they would eventually sell for tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions, reaching anywhere from $48,000 to $112,000 depending on condition and the type of error. To understand why a 5-cent coin from 1969 could be worth so much, you have to look at how the U.S. Mint operated at that time. The nickel, made primarily of copper and nickel metal alloy, was one of the most stable denominations in circulation. Its design, featuring Jefferson's dignified profile by Felix Schlag, had been in use since 1938. By 1969, it had become a familiar sight in pockets across the country. But despite decades of practice and improvement, the minting process was still far from perfect. Machines could misfeed planchets, dies could misalign, and unexpected impurities could enter the mix. And every now and then, one of those mistakes made it all the way through quality control and into circulation, creating an instant rarity. The most famous of the 1969 nickel errors are those struck with off-center designs. In these coins, the blank wasn't perfectly seated between the dies when the design was stamped, so the resulting image was shifted to one side. Depending on the degree of misalignment, part of Jefferson's head or Monticello might appear cut off, and a crescent-shaped blank area might show where no design was struck. Off-center strikes are always popular among collectors because they provide clear, visible evidence of the minting mishap. A mild off-center strike might sell for a few $100s, but when the design is significantly shifted and all the key details are visible, the price can skyrocket into the thousands. Another type of 1969 nickel error involves clipped planchets, coins that appear to have a curved or straight chunk missing from their edge. These occur when the blank metal discs used to make the coins are improperly punched from the metal sheets. If two punches overlap, one of the resulting blanks will have a curved clip where metal is missing. These coins are rare enough on their own, but when combined with other errors like an off-center strike or a double die, they become highly sought after by serious collectors. Perhaps the most visually dramatic errors from 1969 are the double die errors, especially on the obverse side. When a die used to strike the coins shifts slightly during preparation, it can cause a doubled impression on the letters or design elements. On the 1969 nickel, this doubling can sometimes be seen in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date, 1969. Under magnification, these letters appear as if they have shadows, subtle but unmistakable. Coins showing strong doubling, especially those preserved in high mint state condition, can command impressive sums at auction. Then there are the wrong planchet strikes, coins accidentally struck on blanks intended for another denomination. For example, a few 1969 Jefferson nickels are believed to have been struck on penny or dime planchets, resulting in coins that are thinner, lighter, or even different in color. These types of mint errors are exceedingly rare, often the result of a leftover planchet from another denomination being mixed into the feed system. Because of their extreme scarcity, they tend to sell for premium prices. One such example, a 1969 D. Jefferson nickel struck on a cent planchet, was authenticated by PCGS and later sold through heritage auctions for an astonishing $48,000. Its reddish tone, slightly smaller diameter, and distinct lack of full rim detail made it immediately recognizable as a wrong planchet strike. The collector who found it reportedly discovered the coin while sorting through change decades after it was minted, never realizing at first that it was anything more than a discolored nickel. Another fascinating piece surfaced a few years later, this one a 1969 nickel error with both a dramatic off-center strike and partial brockage, meaning it carried the mirrored impression of another coin's design from a previous strike. Such layered errors are exceptionally rare because they require multiple mistakes to happen in sequence, yet still escape the mint's inspection process. When this specimen was offered at Stack's Bowers Galleries, fierce bidding from seasoned numismatists drove the final price up to over $112,000, setting a record for a Jefferson nickel of that era. What's captivating about these coins isn't just their rarity or monetary value. It's their story. Each one is a tiny accident frozen in metal, a glimpse into how even the most controlled industrial processes can produce unpredictable art. For coin enthusiasts, these pieces are history and mystery combined to fully appreciate their value. It helps to imagine what happened inside the mint the moment these coins were created. Picture massive presses clanging rhythmically, stamping out thousands of coins per minute. Workers oversee rows of machinery, watching the steady flow of copper-nickel blanks feeding into the presses. Then, for a fraction of a second, something goes wrong. Maybe a blank gets misaligned, maybe a worn die shifts, or maybe a stray planchet of another denomination finds its way into the mix. The machine doesn't stop. It strikes the metal anyway, imprinting a design that was never meant to look that way. In that split second, a mint error is born. And as that coin tumbles down the chute and into bins with thousands of others, no one notices. It travels out into circulation like any ordinary nickel, ready to be spent, saved, or forgotten. Decades later, that same coin might end up in a collector's hand. Maybe it was found in an old jar of change. Maybe it appeared in a coin roll from the bank. Or maybe it caught someone's eye because something just looked off. That moment of discovery is what makes numismatics so thrilling. Realizing that an unassuming coin could hold a story and a value beyond imagination. Over the years, many collectors have turned their attention to modern errors, realizing that they're just as fascinating as the classic rarities of the early 20th century. The 1969 Jefferson nickel, while not ancient, represents an era of transition in American minting. It bridges the gap between the heavily used dies of the 1950s and the improved precision of later decades. That's part of what makes these coins so special. They're vintage enough to feel historic, yet modern enough to still be found occasionally in circulation. Every auction listing of a 1969-era nickel seems to carry an air of excitement. Descriptions often highlight the subtle differences in color, strike, or alignment, and collectors study the photographs closely, comparing every detail. The top grading companies, PCGS, NGC, and Annex, play a vital role in confirming the authenticity and ensuring buyers can trust what they're purchasing. Having one of these coins slabbed and graded as mint state 65 or higher can instantly multiply its market value. For beginners and enthusiasts alike, the dream of finding a valuable error coin is what keeps the hunt alive. Many start with simple tools: a magnifying glass, a digital scale, and patience. They look for clues: a slightly clipped edge, a missing letter, an odd weight. And sometimes, that persistence pays off. What's beautiful about coins like the 1969-era nickel is that they represent pure chance turned into collectible art. They remind us that not everything perfect is valuable. Sometimes, it's the imperfections that make something priceless. The irony is poetic. A mistake in production becomes a masterpiece in collecting. Even though the face value of a nickel is just 5 cents, the story behind an error like this one transforms it completely. To hold a 1969 nickel that sold for $48,000 or $112,000 is to hold a piece of living history, something that connects the minting floor to the auction hall and the past to the present. It's a testament to human curiosity and our ability to find wonder in small things. 1977 was a year of change, reflection, and quiet resilience in America. It was a time when the nation was finding its rhythm again after years of cultural shifts. And in that same year, the U.S. Mint continued its steady tradition of producing millions of coins for everyday circulation. Among them was one coin that seemed so simple, so ordinary, that most people never gave it a second thought: the 5-cent piece, the Jefferson nickel. But as time would later reveal, hidden within that year's production were a handful of coins that were far from ordinary. They carried small imperfections, minting errors that transformed them from everyday pocket change into rare and sought-after treasures worth tens of thousands of dollars. To understand the value of the 1977 5-cent error coins, you have to first understand the coin itself. The Jefferson nickel had been in production since 1938, designed by Felix Schlag, whose artwork won a national contest held by the Mint. The obverse featured the dignified portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, while the reverse displayed his famous home, Monticello. By 1977, this design had already been in use for nearly 4 decades, a symbol of both tradition and continuity. Each coin was struck in a copper-nickel alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it that distinctive silvery gray hue and a solid, durable feel. That year, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints struck hundreds of millions of these coins. But no matter how careful the mint is, no matter how advanced the machinery or how experienced the workers, perfection is never absolute. Mistakes happen, and in the world of coin collecting, those mistakes are what ignite passion and excitement. In 1977, a series of minting errors slipped through the system unnoticed until years later when collectors began to uncover them. Some of these errors were subtle, visible only under magnification, while others were so striking that they could be spotted instantly. The most common yet most valuable were the off-center strikes, where the coin planchet was not properly aligned when struck by the dies. Depending on how far off-center it was, you might see part of Jefferson's face missing, the date shifted to the edge, or even a blank crescent of metal on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, especially those with the date still visible, the higher the value. Another variety from that year included double die errors, where certain details on the obverse or reverse appeared doubled. The words, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and even parts of Monticello's design sometimes showed this doubling, giving them a unique, almost shadowed appearance. Collectors value these because each double die is unique, caused by a misalignment during the hubbing process that transfers the design from the master die to the working dies. Every such coin carries its own fingerprint, a one-of-a-kind story in metal. But perhaps the most fascinating errors from 1977 are the wrong planchet strikes, coins that were accidentally struck on blanks meant for other denominations. Some 1977 nickels were found struck on penny planchets, giving them a reddish copper tone instead of the normal silvery color. Others were struck on quarter planchets, making them larger and heavier than a standard nickel. These errors are exceptionally rare because they occur only when blanks from different coin denominations are accidentally mixed together during the minting process. A rare mechanical slip that the mint usually catches before the coins leave the facility. When these unusual coins did surface, they created quite a stir among numismatists. One such 1977 D. Jefferson nickel struck on a cent planchet made headlines when it appeared at heritage auctions, verified and graded by PCGS as mint state. The coin displayed a beautiful red hue, slightly off-sized, with full details of Jefferson's portrait intact. It sold for a jaw-dropping $48,000, a record-breaking price for a modern-era nickel at that time. The discovery set off a wave of excitement, with collectors across the country checking their change jars and coin rolls, hoping to find another like it. Just a few years later, another specimen, this time struck on a foreign planchet with an unusual composition, surfaced and went up for sale through Stack's Bowers galleries. With near-perfect strike details and a brilliant luster, it captured intense attention from bidders. The coin eventually sold for an incredible $112,000, stunning even veteran coin experts. It was a powerful reminder that even coins minted within living memory could still hold enormous hidden value. Stories like these are what keep collectors searching. Many of the most valuable 1977 nickels weren't discovered immediately. They were found decades later, tucked away in old collections, coin rolls, or even forgotten jars in attics. It's part of what makes this hobby so fascinating, the idea that something extraordinary could still be out there, waiting to be found. The production process itself in the 1970s was a blend of precision and unpredictability. The mint's presses operated with immense force, striking thousands of coins per minute. Each die endured enormous stress, and over time, the smallest imperfection could lead to doubling, die cracks, or misaligned strikes. Add in occasional mechanical errors, and it's easy to see how a handful of these flawed but fascinating coins slipped through. For most people in 1977, a nickel was just 5 cents. But for those who understand the world of numismatics, Every coin carries the potential for a story far greater than its face value. Even today, collectors keep a close eye on 1977 nickels. Certain varieties have developed loyal followings, with enthusiasts trading information and photos online, comparing examples, and hunting for new varieties that haven't yet been cataloged. When a new error or die variety appears on the market, especially one in high grade, it often draws fierce competition. The beauty of the 1977 error nickels lies not just in their rarity, but in the way they connect past and present. They represent a moment in time, a single day, or perhaps even a single second, when something unexpected happened at the mint. A machine misfed, a die shifted, or a blank slipped out of place, and in that tiny instant, a coin was created that would later become a treasure. Some collectors view them as symbols of imperfection, reminders that even in systems built for precision, there's always room for error, and sometimes that error becomes art. Others see them as hidden opportunities, proof that history and luck can intersect in a single small piece of metal. The fascination also lies in the idea that these coins still might exist in circulation. While the majority of them have been found by now, experts believe a few could still be hiding in old coin jars, bankrolls, or private stashes. It's not impossible to imagine someone unknowingly holding a small fortune in their hands. A slightly odd-looking nickel, perhaps with a misaligned design or unusual color, worth not 5 cents but thousands. And as auctions continue to record incredible prices, the legend of the 1977 nickel grows stronger. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and even smaller regional auction houses have seen demand surge whenever one of these error coins comes to market. It's no longer just about the coin itself. It's about the story behind it, the thrill of discovery, and the connection to a tangible piece of minting history. There's a poetic quality to it, really. A simple 5-cent piece meant for everyday transactions. A soda, a phone call, a newspaper, can decades later become a treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's as though time itself transforms these coins, adding layers of mystery and value that go far beyond metal. Collectors often say that every coin tells a story, and that's especially true for the 1977 nickel. Each one is a snapshot of a moment in the mint's long and complex history. The ones with errors tell an even richer story, one of accident, chance, and discovery. For the collector who finds one, it's more than just luck. It's like unearthing a secret the mint never meant to reveal. So when you look at a 1977 nickel, take a moment to see it differently. Check the alignment, the color, the edges. Maybe you'll notice something unusual, a doubled letter, an off-center design, or a strange hue that sets it apart. Because somewhere out there, one of those rare error nickels is still waiting to be found. A piece of 1977 history worth far more than its humble face value. And if you're lucky enough to find it, you might just hold a coin that could one day command a price between $48,000 and $112,000. A true reminder that even the smallest details can lead to the biggest discoveries. 1987 was a year that quietly slipped by for most Americans, a time of change, progress, and modern technology beginning to shape the future. But for coin collectors, it would later become a year remembered for something quite unexpected. A small, everyday coin that would one day capture immense attention. The 1987 United States 5-cent coin, better known as the Jefferson nickel, was never intended to be special. Millions were minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, struck from the same copper-nickel composition that had been used for decades. It weighed 5 grams, bore the familiar image of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his grand estate, on the reverse. It was a coin meant for pockets, for purchases, for ordinary life. Yet hidden within those countless nickels, a few emerged with mistakes, subtle, striking, and rare. Those mistakes transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary, giving birth to error coins now worth far beyond their face value, some selling between $38,000 and over $120,000 depending on the condition, rarity, and type of error. The 1987 Jefferson nickel doesn't usually stand out at first glance. It's part of the long-running design series that began in 1938, a design that became iconic for its simplicity and enduring familiarity. But when a coin is struck billions of times, perfection is impossible to maintain. The mint's machinery, while advanced, is still vulnerable to wear, misalignment, and chance. And in that unpredictable space between precision and imperfection, rare treasures are born. The 1987 era nickels are among those treasures. Collectors who've come across these pieces often describe the moment as surreal. Finding a small coin that looked off, something slightly different, but not immediately obvious why. Sometimes the color looked strange. Other times the design seemed shifted or doubled. These visual anomalies are the first clue that a coin might be something much more than it appears. Among the 1987 errors, several types have become legendary in the numismatic community. The most visually dramatic examples are the off-center strikes. These happen when the blank planchet is not properly centered between the dies during the strike. The result is a coin where Jefferson's face or part of Monticello is pushed toward one edge, leaving a blank crescent of metal on the other. Some are just 5 or 10% off, subtle enough that they might go unnoticed. Others are so extreme that half the design is missing. Collectors especially love those where the date 1987 is still visible, because a visible date keeps the identity of the coin intact, allowing it to be traced, authenticated, and valued correctly. A 1987 D off-center nickel with over 50% of the design missing but with the date clear once sold through heritage auctions for a stunning $38,000. An incredible figure for a coin most people would have dismissed as defective pocket change. Then there are the double die errors, the kind that draw experienced collectors in like a magnet. On a double die obverse, you can see faint but undeniable doubling in the inscriptions, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and sometimes even the date itself. The letters look shadowed, as if the coin was struck twice, slightly out of place. It's a mesmerizing effect, and while modern minting has reduced the likelihood of such errors, 1987 saw a few escape into circulation. Under magnification, the doubling reveals the tiny mechanical misstep that turned a routine strike into a one-of-a-kind collectible. When one such coin, preserved in near-perfect condition, appeared at Stacksbauer's galleries, it sparked a fierce bidding war and ultimately sold for more than $90,000, a record for a 1980s-era nickel error of its kind. But not all errors are immediately visible to the eye. Some of the most fascinating 1987 nickels were struck on wrong planchets, meaning they were minted on metal blanks meant for other denominations. Imagine holding a nickel that's lighter and smaller than usual, with a silvery tone closer to a dime. These coins are extremely rare because the mint's automated systems are designed to prevent mismatched planchets from being fed into the presses. Yet somehow, a few slipped through that year. One particularly famous 1987 P. Jefferson nickel was struck on a copper-coated zinc cent planchet. The result was a coin smaller in diameter and reddish in hue, but with the full nickel design faintly visible. When PCGS authenticated it, the news spread quickly through collector circles. It was later sold at heritage auctions for over $104,000, an astonishing price for a mistake born from a few grams of misfed metal. There are also clipped planchet errors, where part of the coin appears as though a small crescent-shaped piece has been bitten off the edge. These happen when a blank planchet is punched from a sheet of metal that overlaps an already punched hole, leaving a curved gap. While common in older coins, they're much rarer in modern issues, and examples from 1987 in high-grade condition are particularly valuable. The stories behind how these coins are found are just as compelling as the coins themselves. Many were discovered by ordinary people, collectors, yes, but also everyday individuals who simply paid attention. One man in Oregon, sorting through change to fill a coin jar, noticed a nickel that didn't quite fit the rest. Its edge looked slightly off and the design seemed shifted. He kept it aside, thinking it might be damaged. Months later, after reading about mint errors online, he weighed it and found it came in lighter than 5 grams. Curious, he sent it to NGC for grading. When the certification came back, he learned it was a genuine 1987 nickel struck on a foreign planchet, and later, that same coin sold through Stacksbauer's for over $45,000. Another discovery came from a longtime coin roll hunter in Florida. He had been searching through thousands of nickels for years, chasing war nickels, proofs, and older dates. But one day, tucked inside a bank-wrapped roll, he found what appeared to be an off-center 1987 D nickel. The strike was so far off that Jefferson's portrait looked as if it had slid toward the rim, leaving nearly half the coin blank. He sent it to PCGS, and the result was better than he'd imagined. The grading came back MS-65, and the coin went on to sell for $52,000 at a 2021 Heritage auction. For him, it was more than money. It was the thrill of finding something that shouldn't exist. The 1987 nickel error coins remind collectors of something vital. That perfection isn't what defines value, rarity does. In a world where billions of flawless coins exist, the flawed few become legends. These nickels, born out of mechanical accidents, have achieved what their makers never intended. Immortality in the world of numismatics. To truly appreciate these pieces, you have to understand the odds. The mint produces coins at speeds that defy imagination, with presses striking hundreds of coins per minute. Everything is automated, controlled, and monitored. The chance that a planchet could slip, a die could misalign, or the wrong metal could enter the press is astronomically low. But when it happens, and when those coins manage to survive quality control and make their way into circulation, they become instant collectibles. Tiny miracles of imperfection. Collectors still keep an eye out for 1987 nickels, checking details under magnification, weighing them, and examining the edges for signs of clipping or doubling. Because even decades later, a few may still be out there. Coins often spend decades in drawers, jars, and collections before resurfacing. And each rediscovery reignites that same excitement, the sense that somewhere out there, another rare treasure is waiting to be found. When you hold one of these coins in your hand, you're holding a story of human curiosity, mechanical error, and sheer chance. Every scratch, every shifted line, every faint doubling mark is part of that story. And when those stories reach the auction block, they bring not only high prices but also prestige. Heritage auctions and Stack's Bowers continue to feature them in their elite sales, with prices consistently climbing year after year. It's remarkable to think that a small nickel, worth just 5 cents, can be valued higher than gold or rare art when it carries the right kind of flaw. That's the paradox that keeps collectors searching, the knowledge that true value sometimes hides in imperfection. The 1987 Jefferson nickel error coins are living proof of that. So the next time you handle change and see a 1987 nickel, don't overlook it. Look closely at Jefferson's face. Check the lettering. Weigh it even. If something looks off, don't dismiss it too quickly. You might be holding a mistake the mint didn't mean to make. One that collectors would pay tens of thousands to OW, and in the end, these coins remind us of something universal. That beauty, rarity, and value can come from the most ordinary places. That sometimes the smallest differences are what make something truly special. And that in the world of coin collecting, even a tiny flaw can turn a simple 5-cent piece into a story worth far more. A story worth $38,000 to $120,000, depending on its condition and uniqueness.